Thank you for watching Murder, Monsters, and Mysteries. Tonight, we take a look at a terrifying creature, Spring Heeled Jack. Spring Heeled Jack is an entity in English folklore of the Victorian era. The first claimed sighting of Spring Heeled Jack was in 1837. Later sightings were reported all over the United Kingdom and were especially prevalent in suburban London, the Midlands, and Scotland. There are many theories about the nature and identity of Spring Heeled Jack. The urban legend was very popular in its time, due to the tales of his bizarre appearance and ability to make extraordinary leaps, to the point that he became the topic of several works of fiction. Spring Heeled Jack was described by people who claimed to have seen him as having a terrifying and frightful appearance, with a diabolical physiognomy, clawed hands, and eyes that resembled red balls of fire. One report claimed that beneath the black cloak, he wore a helmet and tight-fitting white garment like an oilskin. Many stories also mention a devil-like aspect. Others said he was tall and thin, with the appearance of a gentleman. Several reports mentioned that he could breathe out blue and white flames, and that he wore sharp metallic claws at his fingertips. At least 2 people claimed that he spoke comprehensible English. Out of the night shadows he would spring, bounding like a Superman, who horrified the English nation for more than 60 years. In the beginning, tales of this devil-like feature who leaped from rooftop to rooftop was thought to be historical nonsense. But in January of 1838, this bizarre creature received official recognition when a barmaid, Polly Adams, was attacked while walking across Blackheath in South London. Mary Stevens, a servant girl, was terrified by what she saw on Barnes Common, and in Clapham Churchyard a woman was assaulted. Lucy Scales, a butcher's daughter, was attacked in Limehouse, and Jane Oslop was almost strangled by a cloaked creature in her own home when her family managed to beat off the attacker. At that point, he leapt and soared off into the darkness. The Lord Mayor of London, Sir John Cohen, received complaints from several parts of London describing a demonic creature with eyes like balls of fire and hands like icy claws, who was able to bound from rooftop to rooftop with ease. The police did not dismiss the stories, and even the Duke of Wellington, although aged nearly 70 at the time, went out armed on horseback to hunt and kill the monster. No one ever figured out who this apparition was. During the 1850s and 60s, Spring Heeled Jack was also seen all over England, particularly in the Midlands. The army in 1870 set traps to catch him, after scared sentries reported being terrified by a man who sprang on the roof of their sentry box. Also in 1870, angry townsfolk in Lincoln are reported to have shot at him on the street, but he just laughed and bounded away, jumping over fences and small buildings. For a while, there was suspicion resting on the eccentric young Marquis of Waterford, but he was never vicious, even though he was considered wild by Victorian society and had been labeled as the Mad Marquis. And now time for a brief commercial break. Okay, this is your basic kit. Now, I'll be doing all the work tonight, so you have nothing to worry about. Okay? You got your Bible, various religious texts, different size crucifixes.
Why different sizes?
I'm glad you asked. The largest crucifix is so the demons can see you coming from far away. As soon as you come in the room, you command their attention and terrify them. Then we work our way down to the smallest of the crucifixes. This one, so you can sneak in. They don't see you coming. You get in really close, they think you're just a regular guy, and then BAM! You scare the crap out of them with it. Powerful stuff. Now, I kind of see you as a small crucifix sort of guy. And that is by no means a penis-sized comet.
Okay.
These water guns are filled with holy water, same with the flask. But use it sparingly, it's expensive stuff. I have to have mine personally blessed by an archdiocese and mailed to me.
I'll use it sparingly.
That's all I ask.
And what are these?
Don't touch those! Never touch the beans, okay? These are very important. They're not a toy.
Yeah, sorry.
The water guns, they used to be toys, but not anymore. I actually got a spare poncho. You want to wear it? It'd be like a matching uniform, eh? We'd look badass.
I'm good.
Okay. That's fine. Maybe some other time. Let's take a closer look at some of the sightings. On October 1837, Mary Stevens was walking near Clapham Junction Station, heading for Clapham Common in South London, when she was attacked by a strange man. She said he gripped her tightly and tried to kiss her, before ripping at her clothes with his cold, clammy claws. Mary called out in alarm, and the character fled. Having heard her calls for help, several local men appeared, and though they searched, they couldn't find Mary's attacker. That same evening fleeing, though, another witness saw him as he jumped on top of their carriage before jumping off and away again. Jane Alsop, February 1938, at Bearbinder Lane. Bearbinder Lane ran into St. Swithin's Lane at Bow in East London. On that evening, Jane was at home. There was a violent ringing at the gate outside the house. She went to see who was there and saw a man who said he was a police officer. The man said, "For heaven's sake, bring me a light, for we have caught Spring Heeled Jack here in the lane." Jane got a candle while the so-called policeman waited, and she saw by its light the man wore a large cloak. Nothing too suspicious, as policemen in those days would sometimes wear cloaks as well. She followed him into the alley, but there was no one there. Not suspicious yet, she gave him the candle. But in that instant, he threw off his cloak and he vomited blue and white flames into her face. His eyes glowed like red fire, and he wore a tight-fitting oilskin suit and a large helmet. He started to rip at her clothes with his metallic claws, which she also described as being as cold as ice. She screamed and ran. He followed her, but her sisters came out of the house and got between them. Once that happened, Spring Heeled Jack fled. Lucy Scales. 8 days after the attack on Jane, an 18-year-old girl, Lucy, was walking with her sister. They'd just been to see their brother, who was a butcher and who lived in Narrow Street, Limehouse, just west of the Isle of Dogs. As they passed Green Dragon Alley, she chanced to see a cloaked figure lurking in there. As she came up, he spurted a blue flame into her face, blinding her. She fell to the ground in seizures. Her brother, whose house they'd only just left, heard the screams and ran out of the house. He found her on the ground with her sister holding on to her. Later, Lucy said he appeared to be a gentleman in social standing, and that she didn't remember him laying a hand on her. A search was done by the police, but they found no one. A report of this attack appeared in the London Times of 2nd March 1838. Later sightings. 40 years later, in November 1872, the South London borough of Peckham was terrified by the Peckham ghost that some said was Spring Heeled Jack. If so, there were several more sightings of this entity. One of the sightings was from a group of soldiers on sentry duty at Aldershot Barracks in Hampshire, 30 miles southwest of London. A sentry at North Camp saw a shadowy figure coming towards him and issued a challenge. The figure came up beside him and slapped him repeatedly in the face. The guard shot at him, but the bullets did no good. Then Spring Heeled Jack disappeared into the darkness with astonishing bounds, the guard said. Sightings of Spring Heeled Jack are sporadic, but continue almost to this day. In South Herefordshire, not far from the Welsh border, a traveling salesman named Marshall claimed to have had an encounter with a similar entity in 1986. The creature he saw leapt in enormous inhuman bounds and passed Marshall on the road. And as he did, he slapped his cheek. He wore what the salesman described as a black ski suit, and Marshall noted that he had an elongated chin. In February of 2012, Scott Martin and his family were traveling home by taxi from Stoneleigh at about 10:30 p.m. when they saw a dark figure with no features, he said, who ran across the road in front of them before climbing over a 15-foot tall roadside bank in seconds near Nescott College on the Ewell bypass. It was only later on, when the family shared their story, that others had told them that maybe what they saw was Spring Heeled Jack. What is this creature? A ghost, a monster, an entity, a humanoid from a parallel dimension? Hopefully one day we'll find out. Thank you for watching Murder, Monsters, and Mysteries. If you enjoyed tonight's video, please like and subscribe, as we'll be uploading more regularly.